Good afternoon, everybody. We will start the webinar in just a moment. This is SCORE Cleveland, and we'll be talking about technology for nonprofits. Good afternoon, everybody. This is SCORE Cleveland. We'll be starting the webinar in just a minute. The topic will be technology for nonprofits. We're going to give people a minute or two to log in, and then we'll be starting in just a minute. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dan Uhrman. I'm a SCORE mentor, and I'll be presenting the webinar on technology for nonprofits. Before we do that, I'm going to briefly talk a little bit about SCORE. SCORE's mission, values, and overall what we do. SCORE is an entirely volunteer organization. Nobody is paid to be a mentor at SCORE. SCORE's mission is to foster vibrant small business communities through mentoring and education. Our focus is on small business, and we hopefully can help your small business or your nonprofit learn from this session. SCORE is the largest network of free volunteer small business mentors in the nation. So no matter what stage your business is at or your nonprofit, SCORE has a mentor for you, and you can request a mentor from score.org and click on the button on the website that says request a mentor. Okay, if you are using an AI program to get summaries, that's fine. I will mention that anyone who is attending this session will get a link to a YouTube video for this session, and also you'll get the slides. This is 2021 data. The data is better in 2022. Basically, we helped over 200 new businesses get started, almost 1,000 jobs, and almost 9,000 people got services from SCORE. We do almost all of our mentoring via video calls. We also do training, and we have a lot of resources on our portal, score.org. Our services are free. The SBA provides a small amount of money to SCORE Cleveland to support our work, and so we work with them nationwide. SBA supports over 200 SCORE chapters, and there are over 10,000 volunteers working in those chapters. This is the SCORE website, and all you have to do is click on the button that says find a mentor, and you can ask for one. I'm going to step into the presentation now. Okay, technology management for nonprofits. Technology management for nonprofits is different than it is for a business because in a business, the technology has to contribute to the bottom line in terms of revenue or cost reduction or productivity. In nonprofits, it's mostly a question of productivity and getting the mission of the nonprofit carried out in an effective manner. It's an investment in the nonprofits programs and services, and it's treated as overhead as a budget item, but it really is more important than that. It's an essential part of your business planning and budgeting, and every nonprofit requires a technology. We're now in the third decade of the 21st century. We're well into the digital age, and nonprofits are learning how to leverage this technology every day. If a nonprofit hopes to affect change, it must start with itself by investing in continuous professional development of all of its employees and volunteers as needed, regardless of job title, and to provision them with the hardware and software they need to do their jobs. The internet is powerful and it's a necessary tool, but it does come with risks. In terms of business planning, the key focus is how IT is managed by nonprofits. Now, unfortunately, the function is only rarely or only occasionally dealt with as a key asset by around 40% of all nonprofits. And this is reflected in how planning for IT is or is not included in a nonprofit's business plan. Among the list of best practices for nonprofits, including IT in the organization's business plan, it's really one of the more significant items. Everyone is using a smartphone. Everyone's using a laptop or a tablet or a smartphone. IT is everywhere in your organization, whether you realize it or not. And quite frankly, there's a strong correlation between including IT in the business plan and the level of technology adoption and the effectiveness in the use of IT. For those nonprofits that include IT in their business plan, many also review annually how well the technology is improving their overall effectiveness. So, assigning a priority to IT scales well with technology adoption and the effective use of IT resources. And typically, you are looking at return on investment as compared to the analysis of the total cost of operations. The lack of a business plan can lead to management dysfunction regarding IT, including, and this is really important for a nonprofit, the inability to control costs because IT is not a line item in the budget. By making IT a line item in the budget, it's a cost that you can control, and you can also target it to the most effective use of these investments. When IT is not called out as a key asset, staff give it a lower priority. This can lead to a loss of productivity gains that could otherwise be achieved by automating business processes. So budgets, making IT investments a line item makes them visible to the leadership of the nonprofit and its board and allows for assessments of how to get the most bang for the buck with nonprofits' limited resources. Budget allocations for technology functions are surrogate measures of what the staff do and where they spend their time with IT. And this is also based on the size of the organization. Regardless of size, management of IT hardware, software, and services is a budget priority for nonprofits. If it's buried in an overhead account, you won't be able to manage it. when the costs of hardware and in other words, it becomes an uncontrolled cost. And if it's hidden in overhead, then you can't see it, and then it's uncontrolled. So it can become a big problem. A key area also is control of the data. That is the lifeblood of nonprofits. A nonprofit needs to know who enters or updates data and who can read or use it. Examples include budget information, income, donations, and spending information, client data, and or membership management if your nonprofit has members. Another class of data that's really important is donor management and overall fundraising information, as well as grant applications, and especially administration of restricted funds. That's grant money that can only be used for one purpose, not general support. Also, your data will include information about board meetings and personnel information, which of course includes personally identifiable information, which has to be closely controlled. Staff training and support. Key objectives are training staff to use technologies they already have and to get value out of the installed hardware and software. For small nonprofits, most technology responsibilities for in-house staff are part-time. And so for small nonprofits, a decision to assign someone the responsibility to oversee IT without incurring new costs means that person is going to have to stop doing some of the work they were previously assigned to, which supports the nonprofit's mission. It's a difficult trade-off, and many nonprofits are unable to resolve it based on available staffing. And this is an area where hiring an outside contractor to handle IT becomes a real option. Their performance can be measured with good contracting practices focused on having good performance measures. Priorities for IT investment should be given to control of finances, personnel management, and specific programming objectives in that order. The nonprofit should consider a technology refresh cycle, 5 years for all devices and software. The internet moves fast, and if your equipment is 6, 7, 8 years old, you're going to run into problems. And so you need to budget for these refresh cycles. Service vendor performance should be evaluated annually by assessing their performance relative to the requirements in their contracts. If you have a requirement in your contract that says they'll respond to help calls within 4 hours and they take 2 days, well, that's something you need to have a conversation with them about. On the other hand, if they're doing really well, let them know. Nonprofits with 501c3 status should take advantage of discounts available through TechSoup. You can look that up on the internet for office hardware and software, as well as application-specific solutions. You can save a lot of money buying your stuff through TechSoup. Donor management software, which takes the nonprofit beyond casual spreadsheets, is a must to manage prospects, mass mailings, postal email, giving campaigns, and grant applications. Membership management and or client engagement applications and records keeping is necessary. Data about these functions cannot be trusted to casual spreadsheets. Depending on what the nonprofit does, there may be vertical applications that serve its mission. For instance, there are software packages that support churches, education for things like enrollment and class schedules, health, patient records, and use these applications in the cloud wherever possible so that the data isn't stored in your office. Because if your office is ever disrupted in any way through fire, flood, or a break-in, and you lose your data in the office, it's still going to be in the cloud and you get right back in business. Because the question you have to ask yourself in terms of business continuity is, if you're out of business because you've lost the technology, how many days can you be out of business before your entire organization is out of business? Social media, okay, really big topic. In a world full of opportunities for nonprofits to tell their story, an organization needs to have a policy and procedure about who, how, where, and when nonprofit posts information about it will be on online platforms. You just can't turn the employees loose and say, please post about it. You need to have an editorial calendar. You need to have one person who's in charge of social media. That person needs to report to management so management knows that the messaging that's going out is the correct messaging. And if employees want to post on the internet, they have to do it in their private capacity. And it's just really important that you have these controls in place because your brand, to use a business term, really can be impacted by what appears in social media. Based on the mission of the nonprofit, decide which social media platforms best support its programs. This means having a use policy to ensure that all social media posts are consistent with the nonprofit's band. I talked about an editorial calendar. Use social media analytics to track the effectiveness campaign. For instance, how many people opened the email that you sent out with SurveyMonkey or MailChimp or Constant Contact, and considering hiring outside expertise for this function. Okay, cybersecurity. This is the big kahuna. Everyone hears about hacking all the time, but there are some concrete things that even small nonprofits can do to protect themselves. Few nonprofits have a formal cybersecurity plan and update on a regular basis. You need to bring in an expert to write and execute one. Excuse me. The nonprofit must have a policy that employees and volunteers as needed will be trained to use the measures in the cybersecurity plan, and that there will be a periodic review process to ensure that this compliance takes place. This means everyone needs to have a virus checker and a firewall, and they must be using it. That's a really simple place to start. The other thing is that it's really discouraged to have employees use their personal equipment at home for the nonprofit's business. If you want your employees to work remotely, you need to give them a laptop or a tablet or a phone or whatever it is you think they need that you can control and which complies with your cybersecurity plan. Because if they're working at home, your plan isn't going to reach that device. Employees who work remotely at home is more common than it used to be because of COVID, but volunteers should not be allowed to work on enterprise data on their personal computer. That's just an absolute must. The reason for this practice is that the nonprofit's data will be put at risk if it's commingled with an employee or person's personnel file. If you've got, your little league scores or your bowling league, or maybe you've got a home business and you've got all that stuff on your laptop and you've got the nonprofits stuff on there too, it just becomes a problem. Mobile devices, including laptops, tablets, and cell phones, must have the lock screen function enabled. That means you use a PIN, like a 4-digit code. It must have a firewall and virus checkers, and the subscriptions must be updated. This is not something that you can do without. There might be other things you can do without, but you can't do without this because hackers are everywhere. And if they detect you don't have the proper protection in place, they can hit you with ransomware, they can steal your data, they can disrupt your operation. So you really need to take this seriously. Okay, let's talk about governance for IT. You probably need a recommendation from your nonprofit's accountant for the financial software that the organization should use to make it easy and cost effective for the accountant to prepare statements and other financial statements and audits. And if you wouldn't mind holding your questions to the end, there will be time for them. I want to try and get through the slides first, and then I'll answer as many questions as time permits. Use an attorney for regulatory filings. For instance, if you have a group home, you're going to be subject to regulation from the city, the county, and the state, and everyone is going to want regulatory reports. And that means you're going to have these documents on your IT, and that means you need to control these documents. Another area where you need to have confidential business information is record of board meetings, personnel files. If your board sets compensation for the CEO and key staff, that's really important personal identification, and that needs to be kept secure. Business continuity. I talked about this a little bit before. You need to think about what happens if your to your operation if you're disrupted. I'll give you an example of how things can happen. Nonprofit was on the second floor of a building that had offices with shops on the first floor, and there was a bicycle shop on the first floor. And the bicycle shop was bringing in electric bicycles. Electric bicycles have lithium batteries. When they're overcharged, they catch on fire. This is exactly what happened overnight. One of the batteries caught on fire, burned the building to the ground, destroyed the nonprofit's business. Good news for them, they were able to replace their computers with the insurance, and they had all their data in the cloud. So within a few days at new space, they were back in business. Had they not taken those precautions, that event, which is nothing they could have done anything about, would have put them out of business. So really important to keep that in mind. Business continuity I've talked about just now. I'm not going to read all this. You should have an inventory of your computer hardware, software, your licenses. It also should cover phones and local networks. And this information should be in the cloud. So if you do have a fire, you know how many laptops you have to be replaced, how many phones have to be replaced, printers, all that other stuff. The other thing is software applications. You'd be surprised how many pieces of software an individual has on their desktop, in addition to the basics, which is word processing, spreadsheet, PowerPoint. You also probably have a web browser. You probably also have a graphics program. Maybe you have a file manager. It can accumulate pretty fast, so you need to have a list. So more information. Basically, these are some links. N10 is free and low-cost resources. Really great website. They also do consulting with nonprofits to help you get your house in order. TechSoup, I mentioned earlier, low-cost software and technical support. Microsoft has support for nonprofits. Charity Navigator, which is a industry organization for nonprofits, has information on how to protect your data. And Google has free office software, workspace, resources, and support for nonprofits. You can get an enterprise package, which will include word processor, spreadsheet, phone, number of other functions from Google at very, very low rates, much cheaper than what you might have to pay for the same capability for Microsoft. So that is the session there. And now what I'm going to do is stop sharing my screen and I'll come back here and I will be happy to take questions. So let's take the first one. Are the recommended package for nonprofit education classes? I'm going to refer you to N10 for that, NTEN. You can find them on Google. They can give you some recommendations. Typically, SCORE does not make commercial recommendations, but we can tell you who to contact to get that information. So that would be the answer there. Other questions? Are there any other questions? I'll just mention that you will all receive a link to this recording and you will all receive a copy of these slides. If you want a SCORE mentor, go to score.org and click on the website score. Let me just close this, and what I'm going to do is show you the website. Just go down here. Let's close that, and bring up this home score, Cleveland score, and let's bring this up. Okay, we got a couple of questions here. Okay. All right. So, let's see. That's the chat. Any more questions here? No, that's not. Okay. I'm going to share my screen a little bit here and show you the SCORE website. This is the SCORE website. I have a raised hand from Gina. Gina, you want to put your question in the chat and then I can answer it? This is a SCORE website. You can see the website here. This is Find a Mentor. If you click on this, you can go search for a mentor, and then you can request one. And we also have local resources, which will show you all kinds of webinars that we have available. These are pre-recorded webinars. So if you have a topic, you can just go over here and click on something. So for instance, let's say you food truck, which is a big topic here in Cleveland. So I say I want to see food truck. So I click on this. And so the whole series of webinars on food trucks. So it's pretty easy to find stuff on this. And so there's 3 webinars on food trucks, just to give an example of how that works. So I'm going to stop sharing here now and finish this up. Let's see, there's another question. We are a new nonprofit. Where to begin to start the process of including technology in the work we do? Yes, a SCORE mentor can help you. Just go to score.org and request a mentor. And in the dialog box, indicate what kind of help you want. If you want help in organizing your technology, put that in there. And then they'll get myself or another SCORE mentor who's an expert in this area will contact you and we'll set up a SCORE mentor session with you. If there's anything else in the chat. No, there's nothing else in the chat. Okay, let's see. One more call for questions. I'd just like to leave it open for another minute in case anybody thinks of anything. I don't want to cut you off. Okay, well, there not being any more questions, thank you very much, everybody, for your kind attention. And I hope you have a pleasant day and have a good rest of the summer.